A good logo is memorable. A fantastic logo makes you think. So, and this has nothing to do with the home industry services, but if you Google like Spartan Golf logo, that's one of the best logos I've ever seen in my life because it's like somebody swinging the golf club, and yet they made it look like a Spartan helmet, and that's 2 layers deep, and that's not everybody can achieve that necessarily with their logos, but it's something to aim for. Of how many layers deep is this logo, and how is it going to be an impact on the people who see it? Will they comment on it? Will they always think about it when they either see that icon somewhere else and think about you? Simple, clean is exactly what we're looking for. Memorable is going to be number 3 on my list, and then if you can make them think, that's just like number 4, and that's the biggest win in my opinion.
Thanks for joining us today as we do another panel discussion here at Valorous Circle, and we talk about the benefits of branding for home service professionals and why it is that you need to be focused as a home service professional on your brand and making sure that people understand who you are. I've said for years that I think you could name a company almost anything and people would use it if you had a good brand that went along with that. And the example I've always used is, imagine that I was selling fudge and the name of the company was Brown Puppy Poo Fudge Company. You may go, oh, Jonathan, that ain't going to work. You know what? I think it would if you had the right brand, because it could be catchy and it could get attention. And you may not sell a lot of it to women. You could sell a lot of fudge to guys because they think it was humorous. So with that, let's go jump into the home services side and talk about, with our panel today, why is it that branding is so important, and what do we need to do as home service professionals to brand our company and ourselves to get more business? So with that, let's jump in. Guys, who wants to maybe start in talking a little bit about what's involved in building a brand? Where do we start with that?
I'll jump in if that's all right. When you think about a brand, you have to think about what it really means, and that's going to be mind share, right? When somebody thinks of something like a tennis shoe, normally it's going to be like Adidas or Nike or Reebok that are at the top ones because they spent so much and invested so much into their brand. As a home service professional, what things could you do, or what catchy things could you do to make sure that you have imprint on people's minds? So when they think of, oh, I need my furnace replaced, why would they think of you? It's because that you own the mind share, and it's what you do to get that mind share and those tools in front of people, which is going to make the biggest impact on your business. Slogans, really catchy mottos or taglines, those are all going to be impactful both online and offline.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, one of the things I know I often recommend is, as I talk to our customers, is don't overcomplicate this process. I think so many times we're working with our clients and we want to have a logo that's bright and vibrant and got a gazillion colors in it. And we want to spend literally weeks and weeks trying to get that perfect tagline. And while I appreciate that, and I know how important a business is, especially to the founder being one, I also know that at the end of the day, sometimes simple works better. Let's talk a little bit, just because branding and identity do have a little bit to go together. Let's take just a quick step back and start talking about some branding basics. I know I've always taught people when it comes to logos, if you've got one, great. Maybe you need a new one. Maybe you need to update. Maybe you need to create one. But when it comes to logos, a logo should be easy to identify and should not be a photograph. In other words, it should be something that looks great in black and white, or I should say that looks great with black on white, looks great in white on black, and also looks good in color, but should not be so detailed that it wouldn't work if you embroidered it on a shirt. Give me some perspective, guys, as we've seen a lot of logos around, and logos one of many aspects of the brand that we'll talk about. But what, in your mind, are a couple key considerations that people should be looking at when they look at their logo? And maybe you've already got one and we're reanalyzing it, but what makes a memorable logo that creates credibility? And that's really what we're trying to do with our brand, is be memorable and create credibility. What are some of the key things you guys see based on that? What should your logo convey and what should it look like?
That's a great question, Jonathan. I think to your point, with the name of a company, it's very similar to a logo in that your logo can be almost anything. It's what you build around that, what that ends up meaning to people. At the same time, like you're saying, it needs to be simple. It needs to be something that's unique too. At the same time, if you're a restoration company and you have a roof, there's a lot of companies that have a roof or a pitch, or if you are using something that is very common, a tree, for instance, if you're a landscaper, there's going to be a lot of landscaping companies that have a tree. It's not going to be very unique. So you want that to be unique enough to stand out, but simple enough to look good on all these different platforms, but to be memorable. So I think that, yeah.
No, I think you bring up a really good point, Ryan. When we're talking clip art, which often ends up on logos, so often, and roofers are a great example. I can't tell you how many roofing logos I've seen that use the exact same clip art that you and I know we can buy from a number of different vendors as far as stock art. And that's okay. It's fine if it gets the message across. But there are also a lot of unique versions of it that aren't identical to your competitors. And I think that can be really important as well in making that work. I think it's a really good point. Jeremy, you were nodding a little bit as I was talking earlier. What are some of your thoughts on logos as we talk logos real quick and that before we move on?
Yeah. So a good logo is memorable. A fantastic logo makes you think. So and this has nothing to do with the home industry services, but if you Google like Spartan golf logo, that's one of the best logos I've ever seen in my life because it's somebody swinging the golf club, and yet they made it look like a Spartan helmet, and that's 2 layers deep, and that's not everybody can achieve that necessarily with their logos, but it's something to aim for. Of how many layers deep is this logo, and how is it going to be an impact on the people who see it? Will they comment on it? Will they always think about it when they either see that icon somewhere else and think about you? Simple, clean is exactly what we're looking for. Memorable is going to be number 3 on my list, and then if you can make them think, that's just like number 4, and that's the biggest one in my opinion.
Oh, great points. We're going to move on from logos, but if you're looking at your logo and it looks maybe a little too colorful, a little too complex, specifically a little too detailed, and again, if you're not sure, take your logo and go to your local embroidery shop and just ask them how easy it would be to embroider that on a shirt. And if they give you a grimace when they look back at you, it's time to reevaluate your logo and simplify it. And part of the reason that's important is when it comes to branding, your logo should be seen almost everywhere. And I'm a bad example. I don't have on a logoed shirt today. I don't think any of us do. But you want to make sure for your team, especially in home service uniforms, give them shirts that have your logo on it to create that credibility. If you're doing roofing, make sure that when your foreman shows up at the house to do the job and he walks up and knocks on the front door, that he's got your shirt, your logo on it to create that credibility and let everybody know who's there. Whether it's on the side of your truck, shirts, jackets, you name it, that clean, crisp logo that's easily memorable is so important. Let's move on to taglines next, guys. So, Jeremy, you were talking a little bit about taglines, and I know this is something that can be very important. And I know, especially the way we look at things, we really try to oftentimes make that tagline something that can be used in marketing on a regular basis to explain what the business does. And I'll just use ours as an example, even though we're not in home services, we're in digital marketing. If you see our logo, Valorous Circle, it really doesn't explain anything about what we do. People can look at that and go, who the heck are you guys? But our tagline is be found, make connections, and create opportunities online. And we use that tagline because it helps then define what it is that we do, or at least hopefully it defines that and moves us forward. What are some things that people should be looking at as they look to create a tagline as far as length and message and a couple things like that? What are some of the key characteristics that make a great tagline? Any thoughts, guys?
It's the value you bring in several words or even less. So your tagline should be all about who you're serving and what you do for them. And then what can you do that's out doing your competition even. That's what we do. We get people found, we create opportunities. If your home service industry, is it the time it takes you to get to a home? Is that your tagline? Is it the guarantee that you give or their money back. Is that your tagline? That should be memorable. And if you can make it profound, you're going to be doing even better.
No, great idea. Ryan, any thoughts on that from a tagline perspective?
Yeah, my recommendation would be to be very explicit and direct. Don't be too coy about it. Don't make it something that's going to create more questions than answers. There's a lot of industry jargon. There's a lot of things we talk about internally within our companies that might not make sense for a tagline. So being very explicit about, like you're saying, Jeremy, this is who we serve. This is the value we bring. I think if you are a plumber, for instance, having something about actually plumbing in your name of your company or in your tagline is a necessity. So if your name is Valorous Circle and you're a plumbing company, you should probably have plumbing in your tagline, for example.
Good. So a little bit earlier in the stream here, Jeremy, we were talking about obviously using tools to help us do that. And I think one of the things that's worth mentioning here is that tons of people out there are asking questions about where do I use AI in my business? And I think coming up with taglines is a great example of a place that people could use some of these new AI tools, whether they're using ChatGPT or any of the other tools that are out there. Jeremy, from your perspective, what's the best way for somebody to utilize a tool like that to come up with ideas, and how can they leverage those tools to save time when it comes to what can be an arduous process of picking out taglines?
Yeah. It's all about the prompts, in my opinion. So when you go to put a prompt in, you can explain the company that, or you explain what you do as a company, right? And then you can say, I want to create a tagline that rhymes or that is simple. And you just keep on asking it for more examples, and it'll just keep on shooting out more examples. I think it's a great way to expedite the process because you'll see things that you don't like probably first, and you'll see things that you're attracted to, and then I would suggest that you take those things you're attracted to and like really key in on them and find out why you're attracted to them, and then see if you can make them better, maybe outside of ChatGPT. Maybe you have a committee that you go to that says, hey, here's some options that we want to go for. How can we make these better?
Very cool. No, and I think it's a great example of how realistically we can use some of those tools to help save us time and energy. It can be a great way to do that. Once we've got that, we've got our logo, we've got our tagline. Now it's time to start figuring out how do we get in front of our audiences. And I think probably the first question I want to encourage us to think about, especially as a home service professional, is really twofold. One, who is your audience? In other words, who are you trying to provide services to, and where are they located? Because when we're talking home services, we're almost always talking a local market or within maybe an hour of where we're located type of thing. Guys, chime in on this. Let me know, what are your thoughts as far as determining your audience and determining location? Why is that so important in making sure that we're branding ourselves effectively and getting our information in front of the right people?
Yeah. In marketing, we call that creating your avatar, right? So you might have 1, 2, 3, or 4 avatars for your company, depending on who you want to target and I guess even when. So an avatar is a personality that you make up. You place them in the location that you're trying to market. You start thinking about what are they wearing, what do they eat, and you really get inside their head on how they would think and how they would like to see your company when you market to them. From there, once you get that keyed in, you can really start to develop campaigns based on their personality, and then if it's the right fit for your company. You mentioned that the company, what was it, dog poop fudge or something like that?
Brown Puppy Poo Fudge Company.
Brown puppy poo fudge company. That's a great example. You said that the target audience probably wouldn't be women; it'd probably be men from 18 to 35 who get a kick out of the thought of eating dog poo. It's funny, but marketing to it, you could have such a good time marketing to that, and it'd probably take off. Home service professionals, right? Your target audience are probably going to be property owners. That's going to be either businesses or homeowners, and you have to really key in on what are they thinking when there's an emergency that's happening, right? Because that's when you get called the most. There's a power outage, their circuit breaker blew a fuse, and they don't know how to replace it. What are they thinking? And then if you can show that value in the marketing that you do to get in front of them, they can be more memorable. So we can go down the path of different outlets, social media, Google ads, right, blogs, all that stuff. I just want to make sure that you know that you have a target audience in mind, and that's really going to help you understand the value you bring to them.
Yeah, I think that's such a critical part. I think so often as business owners, we think the world is our oyster. Everybody that can fog a mirror. I remember going to networking meetings and people would get up and say, "Who are you trying to reach?" And people around the table would get up and go, "Anybody that can fog a mirror." Maybe technically that's true, but it's a terrible way to market your business and a terrible way to brand your business if you're trying to appeal to anybody that can fog a mirror. As you were saying, Jeremy, you really need to define that audience and where they're located to make sure that you're appealing to that audience, because there's a huge difference between somebody that might be in their 20s and renting an apartment and somebody in their 40s who owns their own home as to what's important to them, what words are going to resonate with them, and as a home services professional, how you're going to get in front of them. And let's face it, as a home service professional, in many cases, not all, but in many cases, if you're renting an apartment, that's the wrong audience. We need that homeowner. We need somebody that owns a property and that is going to be contacting us, as you were saying, Jeremy, when they've got a problem, whether that's because something's wrong with the circuit breaker in the electric box, the hot water isn't working and I need somebody to come out and fix that, or figure out what's going on, or heaven forbid, we've had some sort of disaster and there's a problem, a tree's on the house, we've had flooding, anything like that. In each of those cases, that's going to come from a property owner more than it's going to come from somebody renting. So sometimes just even that simple clarification can make a huge difference. And if you're in a community where certain areas have a much higher rental unit basis or frequency density than homeowners, you want to take that into account too as you're figuring out, again, where are you marketing, where are you sharing, and the type of content that's getting out there. As we talk about branding, I'm obviously starting to go into advertising, and I want to stay more on the branding side. Talk to me, guys, a little bit. How does a home service professional effectively brand themselves once they've got the logo and once they've got that? How do they go about building their brand? What are some steps that people watching this should consider?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you're getting started, we all want to go viral. We all want to have 1 million views, and that's great. That's a great goal. But why not 100? Why not 1,000? And as a home service professional, what you said and right off the bat, Jonathan, is we're typically trying to reach a target market that's within 10, 20, 50 miles. So you don't need to go be the national guy. You don't need to have 10 million views. You don't even need to be viral in your state. You don't need to be across the entire state that you're operating in. You just need to get 100, 1,000 views in that local market. So you understand, if you're living in that community and you're interacting with those people every day, you understand who your customer is. So make content for them. Make things that call out like familiar landmarks or familiar things in the area or events that are going on. Those are the things that your local area is going to engage with, and it's going to get you some more of that traction and make it achievable. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing too, is if you're not comfortable taking a comedic approach, don't take a comedic approach. But if you are selling brown puppy poo fudge, then you're probably comfortable with taking a comedic approach, make some funny skits, play off that even more. I think it's about understanding who your audience is and then doing something you're comfortable with, that because that's what you'll do. That makes it achievable.
No, I think that's a really good point. How about consistency? How does consistency play into this? And what does that mean from a branding perspective?
The quality is in the quantity. No matter where you're trying to be found or where you're trying to be, who you're trying to be in front of, people have a very short memory. I think it's every 11 days they forget who they talked to. 11 days ago, I don't know the conversations I had unless I really think about it. So being in front of them as much as possible is definitely going to be an advantage. If you have a good brand, consistent posts on social media are going to be fantastic. answering the questions that they have online, both in social platforms and on a website. Your brand is also the knowledge that you have. And if you don't let people know you have that knowledge, you're missing the mark, in my opinion.
I think that's a good point. So I know one of the questions that always comes up when it comes to branding is, okay, social media. How do I brand myself on social media? And I think it's a good discussion because I also think it's important to note that in many cases, especially as home service providers, we're not going to be making direct sales off of a social media post. We're not creating a post and driving people to book the water restoration job and save $50. It's generally not how it's going to work. So social media can be really important for branding. At the same point in time, it's important that we do things the right way. What are some tips that you can share with those watching today about what are the best ways to use social media to help build your brand?
Right now, I'm going to say YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, TikTok. There's a lot of professionals out there who are not necessarily doing pro bono work, but they just keep on recording what they do on a regular basis, and they make it entertaining, which is also a bonus. But they're omnipresent. There's so many examples of home service industries doing a fantastic job recording what they're doing and having that clear communication of this is the value we bring and this is why you'd want to hire us.
Yeah, and I think the neat thing on social media is we don't necessarily have to always attach to it a call now for a quote or book us today. It reminds me of, I watch a lot of shorts like everybody else. And literally the other day, my wife and I are watching shorts on our TV through the YouTube app. And one of them that kept coming up was a lawn mowing company. And all they were doing was showing their mowers, making those beautiful lines in the grass and edging a really nasty edge along a sidewalk and leaving this perfectly clean edge behind it. And then showing somebody with a blower blowing all that dirt and grass off of the sidewalk in the driveway back into the yard or whatever. So it just disappeared. And I thought to myself, that was literally like a 30-second clip that they did. Obviously, they had somebody out there when they were doing a job. They did a couple angles of the mower and somebody was down low and you watched the mower go by. And then you had the shot at the end where all these beautiful lines were in the grass. And then they had the picture of the nasty edge and the edger going across and creating it and the blower blowing everything to clean it up. Yeah, I know that took a little bit of work, but realistically, they did all of it or likely did all of it. I can find my mobile phone on this. They literally pulled their mobile phone out, had somebody on the crew say, okay, I want you to kneel down on the grass and I'm going to drive by in the mower 3 times. And then, okay, kneel down, get a foot above the ground for this edging and I'm going to run the edger along and let me do that in 3 different spots. And all right, now you've got the blower and again, stand behind me, show me from the waist level of all the stuff being blown back into the yard. Every bit of it was probably recorded or should have been recorded on a mobile phone because that's all we need. And at that point in time, hire a local high school kid or college kid and say, I want to throw this together, and you'll have some great short videos. And all they did is they had their logo and their website at the end. They didn't even have it on the whole time, which I thought was actually, it's interesting from a branding perspective. I know I'm rambling, but they didn't have their logo and brand all plastered all over it. As a YouTube short, in this case, they had the video to get my attention, and then the last 5 seconds of it had the logo and the website. If I'm interested in them as a lawn care company, I know what to do at that point in time. I don't need to even have that strong call to action. I know what to do. Now, they could have added a button on there, call us about making your yard beautiful or something too. That would have been great. But I think that's just an example of how simple and effective it can be to show what you're doing to bring that value to your customer. And that customer will self-select you in that process. Any thoughts on that, guys?
Absolutely. I think going back to kind of what you were talking about, it makes me think of 2 really good points, and that is just hit record. That's the best advice we can give anybody when it comes to social media and doing video is just hit record. Yes, if it could be perfect and you could do it in a Hollywood studio, would that be great? Sure. That's not realistic. So if you have somebody, if you have a family friend or a niece or nephew or somebody on your crew that would like to do some video work, utilize that, make some of that content, come up with something that's really easy and repeatable, but just hit record. And also, we need to be approaching it, thinking about it like we're planting a seed. I think everybody wants, I'm going to make this post and then I'm going to get that, and that person's going to do business with me. That's not going to happen. We need to think about this from, I'm going to do this for 6 months. I'm going to make 100+ posts over the next 6 months. And that's going to get me another 100 or 1,000 followers. And I might get a couple jobs out of that over the next couple of years or next year or something, or a referral. But we need to be thinking of it a little bit more like making an investment to grow over time, rather than this post is going to be that one that drives you all that business.
I think you make two really good points there, Ryan. And the first one is you've got to start in order to get good at something, and you've got to repeat it. None of us. Let's take a look at toddlers. I have a grandson now who is about 7 months old, 8 months old, and he's just getting to that point where he's pulling himself up and walking around by hanging on to things. He's could be by now. I saw him a week ago. He could already be running around at this point. It happened so fast. But in the process of moving from crawling to walking, how many times did he fall on his butt and fail? Probably dozens, if not hundreds, as he's learning how to balance. And as business owners and leaders, in my mind, it's the exact same thing when we talk about video and social. We need to get started so we can get better at it. And if we want to be perfect up front, that's never going to happen. We didn't learn to walk by just literally popping from a crawl mode into I'm running around the house. It took a process, and it took some failure to learn. And if you, Ryan, I think you said it great. Just press record, create 100 videos about anything about your business. Your 100th video will be so much better than your first. It's even unimaginable. The other point you brought up that I think is really good, I'd like to talk a little bit about this, is that expectation, and we've all talked to people who've done this. Well, I posted 3 videos and nobody called me, so I stopped. It doesn't happen overnight. Talk to me about that from your guys' perspective, whether it's videos, whether it's social media, whether it's blogging, whether it's running an ad. Why do we have to do it more than just once? Why doesn't it just work?
Success is time on task over time. That's the period, right? Nobody's ever shot one video and had it go viral the first time. And if it did, it wasn't for a business. It was probably just because it was funny. You have to be consistent, period. You're consistent for your clients. Why can't you be consistent in your marketing?
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. You
So
know,
that
I'll give a
brings-
personal. Oh, sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
I would say to Jeremy's point, I think there's probably a lot of examples out there of companies that have had one video go viral, and maybe it's got 100,000 or 1 million views, but it probably hasn't translated into a ton of business. There is too. Yeah, you could have something go viral, but that might not even mean that you're going to get a ton of business off that. It is the consistency, making sure you're top of mind.
And I think in so many cases, when we know of a viral video and maybe how it launched a company, and I think of the Dollar Shave Club from a couple years ago, they did a great viral video, got millions and millions of views, and really did launch the company. That may be the first video we remember from them, but it wasn't their first video by far. It was hundreds of videos down the way in the process of doing that. So whether you're talking social media posts, whether you're talking answering questions for your client, going live, doing videos and pre-recording them, doing shorts, any of the stuff we're talking about, I couldn't agree more. You need to commit to yourself that you're going to do this for a period of time before you stop. And that period of time isn't a week, it isn't a month, it isn't even a quarter, it's a year in many cases. But if you built your business, you didn't start off where you are today. And it took time to get there. It's going to take time to build this, but the investment can be so worthwhile in the long run. So I think that's one of the big misconceptions people deal with is, okay, I can do this once or twice, and wow, I'm going to post this on TikTok, and we're going to go viral, and my phone's going to ring off the hook. And so they put all this time into recording a short, and then they sit there by their phone, and they wait, and it doesn't ring, and they, wow, that didn't work. What are some other misconceptions that you feel are common out there about branding that maybe we could address and dispel some of those rumors Any thoughts? Any? I know this is off the cuff, so maybe hard to come up with some. But any other misconceptions that you can think of pertaining to that?
I'm going to circle back if that's okay.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned if you're consistent for a year. I was just listening to a marketer the other day, and he was saying that some of his videos only have 20 views. And somebody said, How do those make you feel?" And he's like, "Those are 20 people that never saw me before." That's
Great idea.
that's mentality you have to have. Is even if it's you have 1,000 people, or you have 1,000 videos getting watched 20 times, that's 20,000 people that now know about you. That's pretty impressive.
And from that perspective, it's so interesting when we look back to, I'm going to date myself now, but when I was growing up, we didn't have social media. We had the newspaper, and I grew up in a small town where many home service providers are based or similar to where they're based. And the only way to get out there was to, one, make sure your truck had your logo on it, and your phone number, and two, running ads in the shopper's guide or in the local paper. And I grew up in a town of about 3,500 people. So if you ran that ad, you maybe had a couple hundred people seeing your ad. Probably not even that high, because if they weren't interested, they skipped right over it. And companies did that week after week. My parents had a small business, and I remember every single week the ad rep came in to talk to them at their business about, what do you want to run in the ads this week? And I remember asking my dad when I was younger, why do we run them every week? And he goes, because if we don't, people forget we're here. And I think that's the same thing with social nowadays. You may not get 1,000 views, and that's okay, because most of your competitors aren't either. But you're getting views, and that consistency creates those. The other thing I'll share, and I've learned this personally over the last couple of years, when you're consistent about doing this, your views will skyrocket over time. When I started recording videos, and you guys know I do shorts almost every day. When I started, I'd be lucky to get 3 or 4 views. Now, almost every one of those gets at least 500. Oftentimes, I'm hitting 4,000 and 5,000. That didn't happen day one. That happened because I've been consistent, and I've been just ruthless about continuing to create. And if you're watching this, guys, if they're going to watch a fat bearded guy like me on YouTube or on Facebook, they're going to watch you. Don't worry about your makeup. I've had people comment, "Oh, Jonathan, you need to trim your beard. It looks terrible." Yeah, you're right. It probably did. Or maybe your hair's a mess. Get it cleaned up. Okay, I admit I don't care a whole lot about that stuff. But while 2 or 3 people have said that, I've had thousands of people watch the videos over time. And the neat thing is that those videos, and I love video on social, those videos keep working for you over time, especially when you put them on YouTube, because YouTube is evergreen, meaning if you answer a question for a client and you post that video out on YouTube, that's going to be there for the search engines to see, not only today, but for the next 5 years or longer. And that can continue working for your brand literally every single day out there. And I think it's such a huge tool. So we talked a little about misconceptions. I'm cheating here. I just asked ChatGPT, what are some of those misconceptions, so we could drive the conversation better? And I think it came up with some good ideas here. One is that branding is just a logo. I know I've heard so many people say about that, and I think it's, in many cases, the logo is one of the least important parts of it. Not that it's not important, we talked about that, but in the big picture, let's face it, as a business owner, you love your logo more than anybody else will ever love your logo. Talk to me, about that. I know many people think that branding's just about creating that perfect logo, but it is so much more than that. Anybody have any comments on that misconception?
Yeah, definitely. Your logo is just a representative of your brand. We see it all the time. Brand completely change their logo. If their logo was their brand, then it wouldn't exist anymore, and that's just not the case. So it really is just one piece of the puzzle. Your brand is really, it's more of what you were talking about before, Jeremy. It is a persona. It carries, it has values, it has a mission, it has people that it helps. That is your brand. Your logo is just one little piece of that.
I think the truest brand is not an image, it's the value and the satisfaction you give the people who you serve. because that'll be more memorable than anything they could ever think about or ever see. It's the actions that you give them, and I think that should definitely pull weight on how you present yourself too.
No, I think that's a really good point, both of you guys. One other misconception I'd like to talk about, and I definitely have heard this, is that branding, and we talked about it a little bit here, but branding is a one-time activity. People think it's a switch they can throw instead of a process. Jeremy, I see you're shaking your head. Can you give me some perspective on that?
Oh yeah, it's time on task over time. I know I've already said that, but you have to be in front of people. You have to do actions that make your business stand out in the best way possible, in the best light possible, and as many times as possible. That's a true brand. Nike didn't stop at one commercial ever. That one took me by surprise, Jonathan. I'm not going to lie.
No, that's all right. That's part of the fun. If you're watching these guys, these are not scripted. We're doing them live because we think it's more entertaining, more interesting, and everything else. And we're trying to share things of value and have a conversation about it directly. Guys, as we get ready to wrap up, we've talked a lot about branding today and things like that. I'm going to just say 3 tips I think everybody should do, and I'm going to ask us to close by just going round robin and getting your perspective on that, if that makes sense. So I'm going to read my notes. So if you don't see me looking at the camera, it's because I need to cheat here, and I need to read my notes. So I think there's really 3 things. If you're watching this as a home service professional and you're going, okay, what are my next steps? What am I supposed to do? Let me give you 3 things to take a look at. One is review or develop your brand identity, and that's your logo and your tagline. Take a look at it. I don't care whether your business is a week old or 20 years old. Take a look at that and make sure that it represents who you are. The second part, and I think probably one of the most important, is focus on your customer experience. People don't care who you are. They don't care what you do. They care what it means to them. And look at your tagline and all the content you're creating, or that you should be creating if you're not, and make sure it relates to your customer. How do you make their lives better? Just ask that question. How do we make our customers' lives better? And make sure your social media, your marketing, everything should talk about that. And last, guys, leverage digital marketing. We talked about how when I was growing up, it was newspapers and it was radio and it was things like that. We have such an amazing opportunity through digital marketing to increase our audience, to engage with our audience, and to be seen by our audience. Start creating content today, not tomorrow, today. I want to challenge every single person watching this. Grab your phone, and before you do anything else, I want you to think of a question that a customer has asked you in the last 48 hours, and I want you to pick up your phone. I want you to turn on selfie mode, and I want you to record an answer to that question. And then I want you to take that video without any editing, without anything else. You know the answer. You can do that in one take. And maybe it takes 3, but upload that video to Instagram, upload it to Facebook, and upload it to YouTube. If you're on Twitter, upload it there and in LinkedIn as well. And get started today. As Sean Cannell from Think Media says, punch fear in the face and press record. Guys, those are my thoughts. Jeremy, Ryan, what do you think?
As you're going through that, the one thing I think that is the next best thing to supplement what you said is to, for every post you make, go share, comment on another local business, another person that's in your community, comment or share something else that's out there, and you're going to start that snowball, and then they're going to like yours. They're going to follow you. Make some engagement. Go out there, start that process. Don't wait for them to come to you. Go find them, start liking their things, and they'll likely reciprocate.
Yeah. Jeremy, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that start dating your company. Take your company and look at it as if it's going to be a new boyfriend or girlfriend, and really get into the details about what makes you like that company. And then those are the items that you can actually start branding right off the bat. And number 2 would be create a schedule. Just be consistent in it. So whatever you end up posting, post around the same time of day. People start looking forward to it. So those are my closing thoughts.
You guys, great stuff. I so appreciate taking time out of your day. I know we've all got a lot going on, and I do think these panel discussions add value and experience, and I want to thank you for that. If you stuck with us through the entire recording here, I want to give you one last tip here, and that's if you're thinking, how do I do this? I don't know what type of content to create. I don't even know where to get started. I want to encourage you to check out our 91 Day Success podcast, and there's two things I want you to do. We'll put a link down below, but I want you to check out the interview I did with Matt Plapp from America's Best Restaurants. Matt had some of the best ideas on how every local business owner can create content on a daily basis, and I'll let you watch his statement about how to do that. But it's easy and it takes only a few minutes a day. So check that out. The other thing is, check out our 91 Day Success podcast. We talk with business leaders and success people there every single week. Every Friday, we drop a new episode, and it's all about how they've grown their business, what they've done, and then we end it all with asking them a very simple question. If you had to start over, and some of us may be in that shoes, and you only had $1,000, what would you do? There are some amazing insights, whether you're starting over or whether you're just trying to figure out how to get started with all of this. Check those things out. I think you'll find some good value. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us and make it a great day.